Thank you. Just check the mic is working. People at the back can hear you, yeah? Okay, cool. Appreciate you doing that stretch, actually. I was just thinking it's me between everyone and the coffee, so that's really helped. Great to be here. Great to see so many faces in the flesh. I'm Mark, and I lead Petra's business here in Europe. And yeah, my pleasure today to talk to you guys about Amazon DSP. I'm going to share some best practices and also be candid about some mistakes that we've made along the way. Hopefully you guys can learn a thing or two about that. Just so I get some context of knowledge in the room, quick show of hands, who knows what Amazon's DSP is? Okay, so, and raise your hand again if you have hands-on experience using DSP. Okay, so much more. Cool, this should be some interesting content for you guys. So, for anyone that doesn't know who we are, what we do, quick summary. Petra, our mantra is to give superpowers to anyone that sells online. The specific superpower that we focus on is automation software and services to support Amazon advertising. So think sponsored products, brand video display, and of course DSP. That's all I'm going to talk about what we do. If you want to know more, we have a stand over there. Elliot is here with me as well, so come talk to us. And if nothing else, we've got t-shirts and books, so yeah, come grab some from us later. So it seems like a lot of people in the room, this is going to be a learning experience as much as anything. And if you're anything like me, the best way I learn is to just dumb it down and make it feel like something I understand a little bit about. And that normally is the real world and the experience that we have. I've put up here a picture of a generic shopping mall. And I want to, as we go through this, imagine that experience that, if you're like me, as a kid, is something you used to do quite a lot. My parents would often drag me to the shopping mall at the weekend, probably to just keep me out of trouble. I don't know if it says anything about my parents as shopaholics or the fact that Milton Keynes has nothing else to do with it. But this is an experience I'm familiar with, and I'm hoping you guys will be familiar with it too. So for now, imagine yourself walking through this corridor. Something most of us will be pretty familiar with is sponsored advertising. And the concept of sponsored advertising, it can be a complex one, but if I dumb it down entirely, it is walking into the store, Amazon, and placing the product right in front of the shopper at the point at which they're going to purchase it. And it's an incredibly effective tactic at driving sales, I think we all know, and the data Chris just shows that unless you're in those top placements, the reality is that it's very difficult for you to drive sales. The top placements are pretty much all pay-for ads now. So that's an important strategy, right? But one of the most common mistakes I see made is that people treat the DSP in exactly the same way as this. And it couldn't be more different. The DSP is actually a little bit like this. This is Times Square, for anyone that it's a bit of a blurry picture. And we can see that there's like hundreds of thousands of people out in the streets, they're there, maybe they're doing some shopping, they're maybe just taking photos, but there's ads plastered everywhere, right? Whether it's the West End shows or brands. And this is not in the environment where someone is actively shopping and looking for the product. This is a bit of an exaggeration. It's not always like this in the DSP, but those that take the same tactics that they do advertising to that person who's walked in the door, literally about to buy a product, if they treat their advertising strategy the same as they would advertising to someone in Times Square, they're not going to get it right. And that's the first thing to know. It's a very, very different environment. It is kind of like this. You can use the DSP to advertise to a mass amount of people at scale in an environment that is not Amazon. But more often than not, it's a little bit more like this, where back to the shopping mall, we see this ad on this billboard in the mall. It's kind of a way to draw attention to a product, a brand, something they weren't aware of that they needed, at a moment where it might be convenient for them. So we're going to talk about some of the ways you can do that a little bit later. But first lesson, and we learned this the hard way, is do not treat Amazon DSP in the same way as you do your sponsored advertising strategy. It's a very, very different environment. So for those that are not familiar with the DSP, let me try and simplify it for you. Even this slide is complex, so it's quite a difficult thing to explain in a simple way. But the DSP is Amazon's programmatic tool. Programmatic just means buying in real time to buy media on and off Amazon through, can be standard display ads, can be video ads, can be audio ads, lots of different ways you can do it. The key value proposition of the DSP is you can tap into Amazon's first-party data and its audiences to very accurately and descriptively target these audiences all over the internet. And that's their core play into the programmatic space. There's lots of other DSPs out there. My prediction for the future is that that's a game changer with deprecation of the cookie. And if you want to get into a geek out about that with me later, come find me. But by the way, I'm more fun than that as well. I can't talk about this stuff. Yeah, that's the core USP. Big difference in how you buy on the DSP is you buy media on what's called a CPM. Stands for cost per 1,000 impressions rather than CPC. And yeah, we talk about it in the media world as Amazon's way of building a full funnel strategy, which, as you can see with our nice funnel on the left here, there's different ways in which you can use it, and I'll comment on that in a moment. So what we know now is that the DSP is different to sponsored ads. It should be considered differently. It's a way to use a full funnel advertising approach using Amazon's data. But I told you that the core value proposition is using the first-party data for targeting. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the targeting strategies you can use in the DSP now. So again, to simplify it, I would just split it into what we call upper funnel and bottom of the funnel tactics. Upper funnel is building awareness and consideration, and bottom of the funnel is closer to the point of purchase, where you're encouraging intent behavior and ideally driving to the purchase experience or even making a purchase. Is it me or is this like flicking really in now? Is that true?
You sound fine.
Okay. So we start with upper funnel tactics. So these are designed to essentially find a way for you to increase the number of people exposed to your brand. And there's various different ways that you can do this. So let me give you a couple of examples. So you can use what's called in-market targeting strategy. So let's take an example of, I'm just going to pick randomly, like a candle company. I don't know if there's actually a candle seller in the room. But I can use a DSP to specifically target people that I know are currently researching for like home like home interior stuff, or really specifically down to people that are in market for candles. So that's like, you know, someone is shopping for these products, build awareness of a new brand that they've never heard of. And another really nice tactic that we use frequently is competitor conquesting. Chris just showed you guys some really nice tools you can use to understand how competitive your product is. This is a great way to target those competitors that are getting great market share. You can target specific competitors and conquest the people that are shopping with those. So, go and find the people that are shopping with those competitors. But this really should be all about building awareness of your product. They aren't considering you at this point. And the main thing to look at is not conversion, right? That isn't the objective. The objective is things like impressions, people seeing my ad, click-through rate, people coming to see my products, or even things like cost per title page view. How much does it cost to drive someone to my page on Amazon? Bottom of the funnel still actually is, the whole concept is kind of this awareness piece, but it's a little bit closer to the point of purchase. And there are 3 ways in which we would recommend using the DSP for bottom of the funnel. So contextual targeting is a little bit like people that are really walking down that aisle in the shop. They're not quite browsing for the product, but you can put something right in front of them. That's in context, maybe where they're viewing pages about what are the best candles out there, or like what's the best candle presence, whatever it might be. So that's contextual targeting. Cross-selling is maybe I've bought some incense sticks recently. So you can target people that have bought incense that are interested in making their home smell nice. And retargeting, actually that should read remarketing, because remarketing and retargeting are different. Remarketing is people that have bought my candles in the past, that I know that they burn out within 12 months. It's now 9 months down the line. They must be ready to buy some new ones. That's called remarketing. And you can use the DSP to do that too. Much closer to the point of purchase, but it's not necessarily driving purchases right there. Trying to cue them to get ready to make a purchase from you again. This is about purchase intent. And so you can start to think about ROAS as a metric. Again, I wouldn't encourage just looking at ROAS, But other objectives are click-through rate, detail page view rate, and also new to brand percentage, which we'll come into in a moment. So a lot of you said you've never used the DSP, so you might be wondering, well, how much do I need to put towards this to test it, and what level of scale do I require? First things first, if those of you that have not tried the DSP have also not yet tried sponsored display, start there. Do not go straight into DSP. But if you are already using all of the sponsored ad units, good rule of thumb that we find is something like a fifth to a third of sponsored ad spend should be put towards DSP as a testing. So if I'm spending 30k a month, something like 10k a month makes sense as a testing strategy. You should also ensure that you keep on your sponsored ad spend, because this is about driving intent. You then need to be right at that point of purchase by using the sponsored ad units in parallel. But roughly around a fifth to a third. In terms of with that budget, how should you split the spend? Depends on your objective. If it is ROAS that you really are trying to drive, DSP alone is not going to get you that. But we would recommend splitting something like 30 to 70, 60 to 40 on lower funnel versus upper funnel. So skew more towards the bottom of the funnel, and brand awareness, do the inverse, right? Upper funnel strategies, driving awareness. I've just been told I've got 5 minutes left, so I'm going to skip before Q&A. So, which product should I push? Actually, again, we made this mistake, and it sounds kind of obvious, but I'm going to share it anyway. First things first, you can try the DSP, push your best products. We had a client once where we tried to use it as a method to shift redundant stock, and it was a disaster. So, make sure you push your hero products. Why is that? You're finding people that have never heard of your company before. You want to put your strongest foot forward. So choose your 1 or 2 hero ASINs, and ideally find products where, firstly, you receive a lot of branded traffic. That means that people associate your brand with those products. That's a good way to build a new connection with new customers. And even look at how competitive other brands are on your own products, how many people are targeting your products. They're really good ones to start to build awareness and affinity to your brand name. So some of the most common challenges that we come across, the first one, this happens all the time, is I just don't understand whether this thing is working for me because we're so used to working in a world of ROAS. Always focus on the metrics that matter. That's like a phrase that we say rather than just ROAS, and I'll give you a few of those. First one, estimated cost per detail page view. How much of this, how efficiently is this driving people to check out my products? Not purchase them, check them out, consider them, right? Purchase views, purchase clicks. How is this driving people to look at my products? How many of them are actually driving to the point where they're almost purchasing them, right? They clicked to buy. Not bought, but clicked to buy. It's not in a buying environment, remember. And then, probably an increasingly important one for us is percentage of new to brand purchases, especially if you have relatively low price point products that are frequent purchases. It might not look strong from a ROAS perspective to begin with, but if you acquire new to brand customers, it's an amazing way to start to build loyalty around your products. Final couple of things. So, despite that advice, we still hear a lot, my ROAS is low, I can't continue to funnel money towards this advertising. A couple of quick tools that you can use. So there's stuff in the Amazon Ad Console that can help you understand this. One great report is the Retail Insights report. In this example, this line on the chart is showing organic search impressions for, I believe, brand terms. And you can see that after we started spending money in the DSP, they started to increase. So good free tools that you can use to go and see whether or not this is changing your consumer behavior. But the holy grail of this is something called AMC, which stands for Amazon Marketing Cloud. So Amazon Marketing Cloud is a way to understand touch point by touch point how things like OTT or streaming TV ads and display ads drive purchases and how it influences your sponsored product behavior. And actually, in every study we've done with AMC, all of these strategies lead to a higher likelihood that people will do something further down the product funnel, whether it's purchase or search for your brand. Final couple of things. It's too expensive. I'll be honest, it is. It's not a cheap way to advertise, and intentionally so. Hopefully one of the takeaways you've got from this is it is relatively complex. It's not straightforward. Just to help you understand the fees and how they work, first part that's into the cost is you'll be charged a platform fee from Amazon. So that's like their key to unlocking the media. You have to pay a percentage, normally around 10%, although with some partners you can get lower, which, like for us, you can if you work for Petra. And then the agency fee or whoever's helping you manage it will obviously charge a percentage on top. So before you even started, you've spent like 20% plus of your media on fees. So it's not a cheap and short-term tactic to try, but it can yield some really impressive results. I'll skip through this quite quick given the time, but we just released a case study with one of our CPG clients who were using the DSP to build interest in sell toilet roll, by the way, not a glamorous product, but they were using the DSP as a way to build interest ahead of the important Black Friday and Cyber Monday period. You can see that in the leader, when we're looking at attributed sales and ROAS, it was really low because we were doing upper funnel, like brand building type tactics. And so the ROAS was 1.84 during that time. But because we were building an audience pool who were getting more and more affinity between toilet roll and their brand, when it came to the big sale around Black Friday, ROAS spiked up to 11.68. And over 50% of those customers were new to brand. So it can work really, really well if you do it right. 3 key pillars to be successful from what we've learned. First one is strategic audience building. So really think about those audience segments that I showed you and how you're going to use them. What's your goal? How much of your spend should you split between upper funnel and lower funnel? Secondly is meticulous attention to line item creation. That sounds like, if you don't know what that means, that basically means someone that's very hands-on and operational with optimizing spend is really important. Don't just set it and let algorithms work. You need someone to be looking after it. And finally, make sure you push the right products. Don't try and push crappy products. Crappy products don't sell, even in the DSP. And make sure you're looking at the right metrics to measure whether you're successful. That's all. Thanks.
Does anyone have any questions?
Can I ask a PPC question? It's not DSP.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, if you maintain, if you've launched a SKU and it's, say, number 1 organic brand, and you've got the number 1 sponsored ad position as well, have you got any data on it? Is that a worthwhile strategy, basically, or do they just cancel each other out? It's a difficult question.
Yeah, I don't know if we have any data on that, actually. Yeah. That's an interesting question. Let me take that away. Come chat to me after. I'll ask our BI team whether we have any data on that. I don't know off the top of my tongue, but I'm sure we do. Yeah.
It's basically just the same thing twice, in effect.
Yeah, I think what's quite easy to do is figure out at an aggregate level is your PPC spend cannibalizing organic sales. So like when you start to increase spend, which will correlate with clicks, right? People clicking on sponsored ad units, what happens to organic sales? If you see those starting to decrease, then you know people are highly likely clicking your paid ad, which probably is a waste for you because they will click to organic anyway. So you can do that at an aggregate level really, really easily. What's more difficult is then tying that to like Seller Central, because it will take you time to take the money out of the data out of Seller Central, crunch it with AMS data, which is why like tools like ours and others exist to make that easy. But I don't have any specific data on this is the change in likelihood.
At what point do you give sellers the advice to actually start going to DSP as opposed to just focusing on sponsored ads or organic rankings?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's not black and white. So first things first, like sweat the assets in sponsored advertising first. So we would say, let's have a look at what you're doing in sponsored display. How many different audience types are you using? How many different like ad formats are you using? So that'll be the starting point. I will assess and audit what sponsored display activity people are running. And then secondly is like what kind of products are you selling and how much brand affinity is there to those types of products. So we'll do assessment on things like search terms using PPC, so we know what people tends to be looking for, we know how competitive they are. We'll look at things like price point as well. Like, if you've got a really low price point product, it's an expensive way to advertise, so it's really going to eat into that margin. We only recommend it over a certain price point, really. But it's not like, here's the rules book, use it. The other thing to note, by the way, and I know it's not relevant for this audience, but there's tons of non-endemic advertisers using the DSP. We've got a really interesting success case with Amazon and Volkswagen using the DSP to flog cars because they can target people that are looking for, like, I don't know, I'm making this up here, but like tools to help with tuning your engine. It's a good sign that your car's running into the ground, and the used car market's pretty expensive right now. So a good way for Volkswagen to say, well, maybe this person doesn't realise that a new car is a more cost-effective way of exporting. So yeah, it's not a black and white answer, but if you're interested, happy to do some kind of auditing with anyone in the room as to whether or not you're ready to try it out for sure.